Hello and welcome back to my channel What If Deku 2.0. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today we're kicking off part 4 of our series, What If Vigilante Deku Was the Owner of Cat Cafe? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is Arch12 from Archive of Our Own. All the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now let's dive into the fanfic. Izuku enjoys wandering the streets at night. It used to terrify him. He was an orphan after all, with no one looking out for him. But as he grew into his Helios persona and started garnering quite a bit of respect from the people around, it became freeing in a way. He waves at Ms. Takahashi, who owns the 24-hour laundromat, through the big stretch of windows. Her son got a scholarship to a prestigious university, but it's not a full ride, so she and her wife work around the clock to afford his tuition. He pets a stray dog he's gotten to know over the past few months, Thanatos. He was a scraggly black dog and everyone in the neighborhood has taken it upon themselves to help him whenever they could. With everyone's help he's doing much better. He nods to a group of men selling weed on the corner. The one with the leather jacket has a family he's trying to feed. The young man, not quite 25, his parents died in a villain attack a few years back. The last one is homeless, but if you asked him about his living situation he would just lie. What Izuku's point is that they have stories. Every last one of them. And due to those stories crisscrossing over each other's intertwined in one way or another, everyone in this neighborhood has a sort of unspoken agreement. They take care of each other. He climbs a pipe on the side of a building to reach the rooftop where he meets Eraser. Just another story in the making. Eraser, he says cheerfully. He had a bad day, but after breathing in the night air he felt much better. Problem child. I see you're as energetic as ever. Did you get a good 8 hours last night? P.S. You and I both know that sleep is for the weak. He flexes to try and prove his point. It doesn't have the desired effect. Aizawa raises his eyebrows, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Izuku then brings out a small bag with 2 muffins. One he hands to the man, the other he keeps for himself. New recipe. Let me know how you like it. He grins as he pulls down his mask to take a bite. Aizawa hums, not bad, kid. The hero gives one of his few smiles that doesn't make his enemies shudder in fear. Izuku feels himself flush. It's nothing really. It's not nothing. I survive purely on jelly packets, so this is impressive. He says casually, and Izuku wells with pride. Thanks, he says quietly. The pair sits silently for a moment. It's painfully awkward and Izuku's brain races to find something to say. I never had a dad, is what his brain supplies. Damit Izuku, he shouts to himself. Before he can say anything to remedy his mistake, Aizawa speaks. Oh. It's not the most eloquent thing, but that's okay. It's not like you're a father figure to me, he sputters out quickly. I was always scared to have kids. Being a pro hero is dangerous after all. And the last thing you want is to leave your kid alone in the world. Izuku's eyes burn as he remembers what it felt like to return to the cafe, knowing that nobody would be there. That he would be alone. I always sorta regretted it. Not having them, And now with Eri I'm realizing how stupid I was. The pro hero clears his throat. So what I mean to say is, I'll be here. To be your, whatever. Izuku looks at the man in awe as tears fall down his cheeks. Thanks, Mr. Aizawa. He says quietly, not entirely sure if the man had heard until he responds. Anytime, kid. The man says gruffly. Maybe if Aizawa was feeling less sentimental he would have remembered that Izuku Midoriya also doesn't have a dad. Maybe he would have made a connection. But fortunately for Helios, the man was distracted. A son problem child can do that to you. That night when Shoyuta returns to his apartment he feels a little emotional. He walks in and sees his husband and Eri fallen asleep on the couch. The TV is asking, "Are you still watching?" And the answer is pretty clearly no. Shoyuta picks Eri up gently as he brings her to her room. It's strange. Just a few months ago her room was used for storage. But now he can't imagine it any other way. He lays her in her bed and tucks her in. He grabs her favorite stuffed animal, Puffy, and lays it next to her. He clicks on her night light before shutting the door quietly. Then he sits next to his sleeping husband and smiles before grabbing a blanket for him. He whispers softly, "Your back is going to be killing you tomorrow, you know that, right?" Hizashi just snores in response. Shoyuta sighs. What would it be like if the kid was here? With him? Shoyuta chuckles as he imagines it. It would be a lot more eventful for sure. But it would be okay. It would be nice actually. It took 9 days after the tweet for funding to be cut from the HPSC. It's pretty much impossible to completely tear them down after all, so Izuku thinks that for now this is good enough. He sent a message to Hawks saying that it was done, to which he asked all kinds of useless questions like, how did you get this number? And, how did you irrevocably damage a billion-dollar company within a week? So irrelevant, honestly. On Friday he knows he has to get the USJ somehow. The problem is evading Nedzu. The rest of the students and staff are oblivious to this, but the whole day the two geniuses are actively trying to hack the other. Izuku needs to take control of the cameras so no one will catch him, and Nedzu needs to control the cameras to prevent that. So Izuku is hiding in the vents, the only place in the building without surveillance. He types away on his phone trying to block the rat. He can't get to the USJ through the vents after all. He glances down at the classroom below him and notices a boy with fluffy lavender hair eating his lunch by himself. He tries to recall the information he gathered about the general studies course. He smirks when he remembers the boy's name. Shinso Hitoshi. Quirk. Brainwashing. Perfect. He grabs a small pebble from his pocket and hopes his aim isn't totally sucky. He tosses it through the vents and it lands square in his rice. Shinso looks up in confusion. What the? Izuku laughs as he unscrews the vent. Hey ya. Shinso jumps up instantly. What the? Izuku rolls his eyes. Heard you the first time. Say, wanna do me a favor? I don't know you, the boy exclaims. Why did you throw rocks in my fucking food? And why are you in the vents? How did you get in the vents? And who even are you? The ceiling was unlocked. I'm trying to escape the intrusive eye of our principal. Oh, and I'm Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. He beams at the skeptical boy. The fuck? Hold on. You're Izuku Midoriya? Izuku raises an eyebrow. Isn't that what I just said? Yeah. Like the manager of Evergreen? Yeah. So, wanna do me a favor? Maybe this newfound fame can help him out. Shino's eyes narrow before he says quietly, can I meet Hades if I do? Izuku snorts, why not? Shinso considers this for a moment before huffing out a laugh. You know what, sure, I'll do it. What's the favor? Izuku grins, so here's the plan. As soon as Izuku manages to escape UA, he bolts to the USJ. He makes a mental note to thank Shinso for using his quirk to help him out. He activates his invisibility quirk as he slams into the metal door of the USJ as hard as he possibly can. With One for All, it's pretty easy to knock it open. He scans the area immediately and sees a group of villains pouring out of a dark purple portal. What was that? Someone just opened the door? Nobody's there? Heroes and villains alike freak out over who on earth could have entered. Well, invisibility quirks were not insanely common, they weren't rare either. Nobody knew if whoever entered was going to help or hurt them. That was until Izuku made it clear. A young man with an obscene amount of hands on his body was speaking, and Izuku recognized him immediately. Shigaraki Tamura. Quirk. Decay. So Izuku held his breath as he walked. His steps were nearly silent. He got so close to Shigaraki he felt his breath on his face. He could see the vibrant red shade of his eyes. Finally he took a deep breath. And he took Decay as his own. He ran away as fast as he could. There was no way of knowing when people would realize their quirk was gone. Some noticed instantly, like a limb was missing, while for others it could take months. For Shigaraki Tamura it took approximately 10 seconds. In those 10 seconds he waved his hands around manically because, who was that? I heard someone. The other villains looked around as well for the invisible enemy that was already running back to find a safe place. Usually when someone can't use their quirk they instantly surrender. People are so reliant on their quirks that most villains can't even fathom the idea of being able to win without it. But unfortunately for Izuku, Shigaraki was determined. Who stole my quirk? The man screeches to the heroes and Izuku has to bite back a laugh at the mini tantrum the 20-year-old handyman is throwing. Then his eyes focus on Aizawa. You. He creeps closer. Yuri Racerhead, yes? Aizawa prepares his capture weapon and all of Izuku's teachers arrange themselves in a fighting position. For a moment Aizawa's eyes flick over to where Izuku is. Whether he had heard the boy or his quirk had some kind of special feature, or if it was just pure instinct, Izuku will never know, but they made eye contact. Izuku, the man said under his breath. Nomo, get that man. And that was the moment when everything went batshit crazy. Everything was hazy. Smoke filled the area. The villain with the warp quirk disappeared in a split second. Shigaraki was being detained and unconscious bodies littered the ground. The Nomu was pretty much torn in half after All Might dealt with it. He's standing around in his deflated form. But Izuku doesn't care. Because all he can see is a dark crimson shade. Aizawa's blood is seeping into the cracks in the ground. His healing quirk requires him to touch the other person. But he has Shigaraki's quirk which he can't yet control. So he can't do a single thing. Izuku is sobbing violently, his invisibility quirk flickering away slowly. To the surrounding heroes he probably looks like a glitching TV screen. Midnight is calling for assistance. All Might is running towards him with pity in his eyes. 13 is knocking out the final villain. Izuku's body shakes as All Might places a large hand on his shoulder. He vaguely hears the man say, "We've called for an ambulance," but the rest of his sentence fizzes out to a blur. His time spent with Eraser echoes in his head. "I'll be here. To be your, whatever. Just be careful. You're not stupid, why are you doing reckless things? How are you? What are you up to now, problem child? I heard you were sick. Feeling better? What happened is not your fault. Have a good day, kid. You're never going to tell me anything about your life, are you?" His tears fall and hit the concrete. The world spins around him and within seconds things fade to black. Chiyo Shizenji, also known as Recovery Girl, has been working as a hero for the past 5 decades. Suffice to say, she's seen a lot of bloody and broken bodies in her office. But as she heals the unconscious teen, she feels a shiver run down her spine as she sees the plethora of scars across his body. There's also the pesky little problem that everything his hands touch turns to dust instantly. Normally Chiyo wouldn't bat a second eye at this sort of thing. Her colleague is a washing machine for Pete's sake. But she knows this boy's quirk. And it's not decay. When Toshinori told her about One for All and All for One a few decades ago, that boy had gotten the scolding of his lifetime, but ultimately she knew the powerful quirk was in good hands with Yagi. And his successor is the best that she ever could have asked for. Sure, he needs a few lessons in self-preservation, but he has a good heart. So she grabs a pair of gloves, specially made for people with a 5-finger contact quirk, and she carefully slides them on. She smiles at the boy as she thinks about the villain with the decay quirk. She hums gently and glances up to the security cameras where Nedzu is sure to be watching. The light on the camera blinks red and Chiyo shuts the curtains around the boy's bed. She steps out of her office and into Nedzu's, which is just across the hall. She opens the door and looks at the principal sipping tea in his chair. She looks at him with an icy glare. "You better keep that young man safe, you hear me?" she demands from her boss. "The king of the underground dash," Nedzu starts to explain, but Recovery Girl shakes her head. "I don't give 2 shits about the king of the underground, mister. You keep him alive." The rodent smiled tensely. "Yes, ma'am," he says obediently. She huffs lightly. "You had a kid with All for One, huh? That's one well-kept secret you held on to, Inko." She thinks about her old student with a small smile gracing her face. Chiyo returns to her office and glances over to where Izuku Midoriya is lying unconscious behind the curtains. "You raised a good kid, Inc." He wakes in Recovery Girl's office with a pair of green artist gloves on his hands. His head is ringing as he gets up to push back the curtains surrounding his bed. He looks up and sees Recovery Girl sitting at her desk typing on an old computer. She looks up at the sound of rustling bedsheets and smiles. "Midoriya, I'm glad you're awake. Where's Mr. Aizawa?" He cuts in swiftly. "Recovering in the next room." Izuku stands up and looks around to find his shoes. "He'll be fine, but he was pretty banged up. Sweetie, you can't go over there right now, he's not dash." "I don't care," he says as he walks over to the door. "Thank you." He meets the old woman's eyes. "But I need to be there." Right before he could grab the door handle, it swung open, revealing All Might, looking both relieved and pissed off. Izuku winces, remembering how he snuck out directly against his instruction. He smiles sheepishly. "We need to have a conversation, young Midoriya." Goddamn, All Might looks so disappointed. Izuku sits back down on his bed with his head hanging low. "Sorry," he mumbles under his breath. All Might sits down next to him and ruffles his hair. "You really wanted to help, huh?" Izuku's eyes welled up with tears. "Why? They sit there quietly before he speaks again. "I knew I could help if I dash." His sentence fumbled around weakly in his mouth. What did he expect to be able to help with? He was just a stupid deco. All Might sighs. "You really are quite an incredible young man." Izuku looks up at his idol. What is he talking about? "You are insanely powerful with the heart of a hero. But you are a child." "I'm not a dash. You are 15. You shouldn't be fighting villains." "Not yet." Izuku shrinks in on himself. He can handle fighting villains. What does Toshinori think he does all night? As if he could read his thoughts, All Might continues. I know that you are capable. But you don't need to be." Izuku stands up abruptly, feeling tears streak down his face. "But I did need to be. Eraser got hurt. And I could have helped more if you would have let me." Toshinori stands up. His arms wrap around him gently. Izuku lets himself sink into the hug. After a while they separate. Izuku wipes his tears away with the sleeve of his shirt. "Why you give good hugs?" he says quietly. Yagi smiles. "I'm so glad you're okay, young man." Izuku matches his mentor's smile. "Thank you." Izuku stares at his hands, testing his control of his new decay quirk. Thankfully his quirk allows him more control over the quirks he wields than others might have. But in the beginning it's always a bit hard to figure out how to turn it off. He's shaken out of his stupor when Nedzu comes in. He steps into the room with the same kind of poise he always has. Izuku waves to him. "Hi. Hello. How did you manage to get out?" "I was able to keep control over the cameras the whole time." Izuku grins. Shinso Hitoshi. Nedzu nods in understanding. "Good job using your resources." Izuku lifts his chin a little at the praise. "Thanks, sir." Midnight and 13 were very curious as to why a first-year student showed up to the USJ. Izuku cringes remembering how he forgot to keep using his quirk. "Right. And the invisibility?" "Told all of them it was support gear you stole." "You told them I stole it?" "And they believed that?" Nedzu gives him a look. "Of course they believed you stole it. You're my student. They think the worst of me." Izuku snorted. "Fair." He fiddles with his hands anxiously. Everything at the USJ went to shit and it was his fault. If he wasn't so stubborn maybe Aizawa would still be okay. What should we tell them about why I was there? Maybe you overheard that there was a security threat and wanted to help? It's not exactly a lie. Nedzu suggests. Izuku notes Tsura. But I need you to tell me something honestly. How's Aizawa? Nedzu's gaze softens. He didn't really think that was possible for the rodent, but apparently it was. He was hurt badly. But thanks to you and your teachers it wasn't as awful as it could have been. He will probably wake up in a few hours, but it's still undetermined. Izuku sucks in a breath. "Thank you for telling me, Nedzu." "Of course." The principal leaves and recovery girl returns into the room walking over to heal his last injuries. All for One grits his teeth and slams his fist down on the desk, splintering the wood easily. He takes a deep breath trying to compose himself. He doesn't yell. All for One doesn't yell. "Sir." Kurogyari tries to speak but All for One holds up a hand. All for One closes his eyes and sighs. "Do you know how much time, energy and money I invested in Shigaraki Tamura?" Kurogyari doesn't answer, which is a smart choice. "So much." He turns to his Nomu assistant with a tense smile. "Fix this. Now." The man bows. "Yes, master. I will return Shigaraki Tamura to you." In a matter of minutes Kurogyari had broken into the maximum security prison in which they were holding the boy. And well, Shigaraki is returned. But it was wrong. So wrong. He notices his raised tone and lowers it calmly. "Who did this, Tamura?" The blue-haired young man sits on the couch cautiously touching the throw pillow with all 5 fingers with some kind of wonder in his eyes. I didn't see them, master, they were invisible." All for One's eye twitches. "We'll have to make use of our person inside then," he says with barely contained rage. Kurogyari nods and dissipates in an instant to do his job. Tamura looks more uncomfortable with Kurogyari gone and All for One looks over the man. There's really not much use for him to work now. He could kill him but that wouldn't be useful either. His mouth quirks into a smirk. That may work very well. He stands up and watches as his ex-student flinches. He places his hand on the young man's shoulder and breathes out lightly. He snaps his fingers and Kurogyari returns. "Yes, sir?" "Return him to the prison. Leave no trace." "Sir?" He turns to the Nomu. "Was I unclear?" "No, sir." He narrows his eyes and looks over the man. "Good." Aoyama's stomach is in knots, and this time it isn't because of his hand-me-down quirk. He's alone in his room with eyes sore from crying and a trash bin next to him reeking of vomit. It's not that bad. He tries to convince himself. He just needs to figure out who was at the USJ on Friday. Why on earth the higher-ups want that, he has no idea, but it's gotta be important if they're risking sending him in. So he takes a breath and prepares for Monday. He'll have to do some snooping. Izuku sits next to Eraser's bed. The room is stuffy and white and the chair he's sitting on is very uncomfortable. But he won't leave. He listens as the man breathes in and out aided by a bunch of tubes and machinery. He sighs and pulls out his notebook. I've heard that people in comas sometimes hear what's going on outside. There's no response. Izuku's heart constricts and he feels silly for hoping that the man would awaken after a single sentence. So I'm going to read you a page of my journal. One day at the Evergreen you asked me what I write in here, so I guess now you'll find out. Lucky you, huh? He tries to sound optimistic just in case Eraser can actually hear him. He opens to the first page and smiles with nostalgia. Oh, this was written just after I met you. He takes a breath and begins reading. A pro hero came by today. His name is Eraserhead and he's underground so no one knows too much about him, but today I found something out. He drinks black coffee. Tenya told me that it's not an odd trait, and that it's not worth writing down, but who cares, I think it's cool. I think his quirk works based on eye contact, because he's always within view of villains when he takes them down. He basically fights quirkless, it's so incredible. I wonder if Kakin knows that there's a hero like Eraserhead? That would be a big hit to his ego, ha. He finishes reading and smiles. I guess now Kakin knows, doesn't he? Izuku comments. It's strange reading entries from years ago. Look at us now. He glances down at the comatose man and winces, look at us now. About an hour later Shinso Hitoshi comes by. It's a surprise for sure but a welcome one. Izuku looks up and smiles at the boy. Well, if it isn't my partner in crime. Shinso sits on the infirmary chair next to Izuku. Your partner in crime got detention over your favor. Izuku grins, figures. Nedza doesn't like to be outsmarted after all. Shinso looks at the unconscious man. Does this teacher being injured have anything to do with your favor? He asks with guilt lacing his tone. Izuku's smile falls. It's what the favor was trying to prevent. He tucks a strand of hair behind his ear casually. It didn't work as well as I'd wanted. Obviously. Shinso hums. Well, I don't know what on earth happened to you after I saw you last, but it's clear it wasn't good. The purple-haired teen scans the small freckled boy. What's that supposed to mean? Izuku asks, affronted. Shinso smirks. It means you look like shit, vent boy. How long has it been since you've slept? I'll have you know I was unconscious for hours. He says defensively. Shinso shakes his head with a chuckle. That's not the same as sleeping. The boy offers him a hand to stand up, which Izuku takes gratefully. Izuku smiles at his new friend, Fair. Say, wanna meet the cats? If you have time, I mean. Shinso smiles in return. I'd like that. The two of them walk into the cafe where there's the usual hubbub of customers and Izuku's employees. Izuku spots Hades hiding under a couch and points him out to Shinso. There's the Moody. He says as he watches Shino's eyes go wide. Oh my god. He pets the dark cat and to Izuku's surprise the cat doesn't immediately go to scratch the boy. Instead he kinda just accepts the human's affection reluctantly. He likes you, that's pretty rare. Izuku leans against the wall as he watches the boy play with the cat. Toga, who'd been bringing table for their lattes, walked over to the boys. No way. Hades won't even let me touch him, much less play with him. She pouts. Izuku smiles. Seems like Aizawa and Shinso have the magic touch. Toga laughs as she holds out her hand for the lavender hair boy to shake. I work at Evergreen, do you like blood? To his credit, Shinso answers her question. I mean, I like the blood that keeps me alive. Himiko grins. That's good enough for me. Izuku introduces the two to each other. Toga Himiko meet Shinso Hitoshi. Shinso meet Toga. Toga jumps with excitement. Wonderful. Are you a new employee? Shinso shakes his head as Izuku shrugs. The two look at each other and Izuku breaks the awkward silence. We always need new employees and, he scans the boy top to bottom. Something tells me you're not unfamiliar with obscene amounts of caffeine. Shinso laughs, you'd be right. And you know what, I've been needing an after-school job. He glances around the cafe. And you can't get much better than cats and coffee. Izuku pumps his with glee. Fuck yeah. He runs to the back as he grabs an apron and runs back to the pair. He places the apron around Shinso's neck and grins before turning to the customers, who for the most part, are accustomed to Izuku's weird habits. We've got a new employee. He shouts out far too loudly. The regulars cheer and there are a few cameras recording. No doubt this will be viral in a matter of hours. Izuku uncaps a Sharpie and writes, Shinso Hitoshi, on his apron, and beneath it in silly lettering the Cat Man. Toga, who has her own nickname, Blood Queen, on her apron high-fives the boy as she leads him to the back to introduce him to the other employees. Izuku grins. Slowly but surely this place is starting to feel like home again. He feels the old tattered photograph in his pocket and pulls it. He looks at his mom's smiling face, forever frozen in time. He sighs as he pockets the picture once more. Hey Zu, get your ass over here. Himi calls from the back and Izuku smiles. Coming. Shinso is overwhelmed. This whole entire day has been a shitstorm and he doesn't quite know how he got here. And by here, he means in the vents of the Evergreen Cafe. The blood girl Toga called it a rite of passage for new employees while a scarred man with the nickname Burnt Toast called it bullshit. But either way here he is with a new job he got while meeting new people. I don't know how to get out of here. He yells, panic seeping into his voice. Uraraka, a girl he recognizes from UA, shouts words of encouragement, while the scarred man just laughs. Screw you, he shouts back. Oh, the new kid has a backbone. He can basically hear the smirk in the man's voice. Izuku unscrews the vent and pokes his head in and smiles. Shinso sighs, you know I preferred things how they were 12 hours ago, when you were in the vents and I was in peace on the ground. He snarks to the boy who just grins wider. I was throwing rocks in your food, there was no peace. He offers a hand to help Shinso out, which he takes. Shinso lands on the ground with a sigh of relief. Floor, my old friend, how I've missed you, he exclaims dramatically. Izuku giggles. So, who wants to teach the fresh meat the wonderful art of customer service? Early, very early in the morning, maybe 3 or 4 a.m., after the cafe closed and Toga went to bed, Izuku snuck out. For the first time in years he went out without his suit or his mask. He leapt from rooftop to rooftop wearing his street clothes and his classic red shoes as well as his backpack. He looked over his shoulder, grateful to see nobody around as he snuck into UA. The gate let him through thanks to Nedzu, and he entered the dark building quietly. It was weird to be here at night after weeks of coming here while kids stormed the halls. His footsteps seemed too loud in contrast to the quiet night. All the lights were off until he reached the recovery girl's office. The light escaped from underneath the door and Izuku pushed it open hesitantly. Luckily for him, recovery girl was nowhere to be found. So he sneaks into the stuffy room he was in hours ago. He sees Aizawa still unconscious and he sighs. He sits in the chair. And sits. And sits. 4 hours. Shoyuta Aizawa wakes from his coma at 5:23 in the morning. The first thing he sees is light. Bright, obnoxious light. He looks around his surroundings to find, to his shock, one Izuku Midoriya fast asleep on a chair a few feet from his bed. His head is aching so he stands to ask where recovery girl is. He leans up to try and drags himself out of his hospital bed. But that exact second is when Izuku wakes up. He mutters some nonsense as he rubs his eyes with exhaustion. The moment he notices the man he brightens instantly. Mr. Aizawa, he exclaims. Aizawa winces at his volume. Hey kid. Izuku's voice drops to a whisper. Oh, sorry, you probably have a headache, don't you? Aizawa nods. Ah, well, I'm so glad you're awake. Oh, it's Saturday morning by the way. The boy glances down at his watch. It's 5:30. What happened? He asks hazily, and why are you here? It's not a school day? I don't. His question fades away as he looks to the boy in confusion. Izuku hums, makes sense you don't remember much, your head got pretty hurt. He scratches the back of his neck anxiously. I don't think I'm a reliable narrator though. You'll have to ask someone else. Izuku stands up and walks swiftly out the door. Glad you're up, Eraser. He shouts as he runs down the hallway, leaving Aizawa alone in his hospital room. That brat just avoided all of my questions. Aizawa was tired. The last thing he remembered before everything became blurry was stepping into the USJ. It clearly didn't go well, considering the fact that Shoyuta is in the infirmary. Plus, why was Izuku there? To get answers to his questions, he hobbled over to Nedzu's office. Recovery girl was not happy with him getting up and walking around, but Shoyuta has never claimed to be a patient man. He opens the door and sees the rat discussing something with all of the other teachers who were at the USJ. Oh, Aizawa. We were just going over yesterday's incident. Aizawa looks at his friend Nimuri. She's biting her nails anxiously. Oh, this is one of those talks. He listens and listens as Nedzu tells an obviously heavily edited version of events. His stomach tightened the moment Izuku's name was brought up, and it only got worse from there. But how did he get that information? Aizawa asks Nedzu. He is a skilled hacker, he could have dash. Bullshit. You're hiding something, Nedzu. Something is wrong, this is my kid we're talking about. He dash. Shoyuta grimaces as his injury flares up harshly. He takes a deep breath before continuing. You need to tell me. He says threateningly, hoping that the rat will budge and give him something, anything. But Nedzu stays composed. If there was relevant information, I would have shared it. Anything you don't know for a reason. Shoyuta grits his teeth before standing up. Fine. I guess I'll just find it out myself. He walks to the door and slams it in his boss's face. Monday morning in Class 1A there were tons of theories as to why Aizawa was late. Mina bet that he had gotten a woman knocked up and that now he was meeting his baby that was born out of wedlock. She thinks that he has fallen in love with this mystery woman and that he will never return to UA again. Suffice to say, she has no idea that Aizawa is a gay man who has an adoptive daughter with present Mike. Shiro thinks that he got absolutely wasted over the weekend and that he's at home vomiting over his toilet. Bakugo yells that the rest of them are all idiots and that he probably got injured doing hero work. He was right, of course, but nobody believed him. You're just not imaginative enough, Baku bro. Kirishima says before turning to Todoroki, who has been sketching in his notebook during the whole conversation. Why do you think Mr. Aizawa is late, Todoroki? Todoroki looks up seriously. Okay. I have my theory. He shows the class his notebook, which they all gather around. Everyone knows Mr. Aizawa can look like a caterpillar sometimes, right? The class nods as the dual-colored boy goes on. And caterpillars turn into chrysalis. What if, and stay with me here, Aizawa is a butterfly? He finishes his speech by pointing at his sketch of a butterfly on his notebook. That's so smart. Denki gasps. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Bakugo kicks Todoroki in the leg, and I grew up with Deku. Hearing this, Izuku looks up from his desk. Hey, I had good theories. Bakugo rolls his eyes, like the one about how President Mike swallowed a megaphone and that's how his quirk works? For your information, that has never been disproved. Izuku states matter-of-factly. It could still be true. Besides going back to Eraser, I bet he's just sick or something, we shouldn't war dash. And just that second, as if purposefully timed to shock people, Aizawa Shoyuta walks in the classroom with a heavily bandaged head. Take your seats. He announces like he doesn't have 10 pounds of gauze wrapped around his skull. Before anyone can ask any questions, Mr. Aizawa tells the class a half-truth. I got hurt doing hero work. In the back, Mina pays Bakugo some money for the bet. I'm fine. It is none of your business and I will be saying no more than this. Anyway, let's continue with our lesson from Friday. Izuku feels Aizawa's eyes on him throughout the lesson. It's obvious that he got some answers from Nedzu over the weekend, but not enough to satisfy him. While the class gets started on a worksheet, Aizawa calls him up to his desk. The class is watching like vultures waiting for gossip. Izuku sighs and walks up to him. What's up, sir? Aizawa's eyes narrow as he tries to figure out what secrets the boy is keeping. I heard something over the weekend. Izuku raises his eyebrows with a smile. Oh? Was it about the USJ? Aizawa tilts his head. It was indeed. What on earth were you thinking? He hisses under his breath. Immediately Class 1A is listening in. They make it painfully obvious, but it's clear Aizawa doesn't care. That was so reckless, Midoriya. Izuku smiles. I know. But I couldn't let it be. Aizawa scowls. Next time you need to. We had it handled. Well, obviously you didn't, sir. Izuku exclaims. In case you didn't notice, you have a gigantic bandage around your head. I like to think that your injury is better because of my interference. This isn't about my well-being, it's about yours. The man shouts. If it went wrong, what would have happened to Toga? Ichem? The cats? The evergreen? He sighs. You have people that care, kid? The class watches the interaction with bated breath. Izuku crosses his arms, ignoring the tears welling up in his eyes. Well, what about Eri, sir? How do you know Dash? What about Kiyama? Yamada? Izuku grabs his backpack and starts to walk out of the door. What about me? He lets that sink in before finishing his statement. You have people that care too, Eraser. He slams the door shut as he leaves. A moment after Izuku left, Bakugo follows. Aizawa doesn't even try to stop him. Aizawa looks at the slammed door and sighs softly. He looks to the class, who is waiting for his reaction. What? Get your work done. Aoyama's heart beats in his chest. Shit. Izuku Midoriya was at the USJ. There's always been something a little weird about him, but Yuga had just assumed he was a little eccentric. So he thinks over his options. He could report this instantly. That's what the higher-ups would want. But if he just waits until the end of the day, it wouldn't be awful. It's just a few hours after all. Can't he play hero for a few hours at least? Yeah. So Aoyama resolves to report this tonight. But not just yet. Izuku storms out of the classroom angrily, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls. He collapses against the wall as tears stream down his cheeks. Deku. The usually gruff voice is rather gentle. Ugh, what, Kaken? He says bitterly, are you going to berate me too? Kaken scoffs as he sits down next to the freckled boy. You've never changed, nerd. What's that supposed to mean? After you left Aldera, things changed. I changed. Izuku rolls his eyes sarcastically. Great. Wonderful. Why are you telling me this? Kaken elbows him sharply. Hey, let me have my melodramatic speech. Anyway, things were different. It was weird not having you there. Please, I'm sure it was a breath of fresh air for the great King Mutter God Dynamite. Izuku laughs weakly through tears. Baga huffs out a laugh. Maybe. I was awful. When you left, I started bullying this extra. Never even learned his name. But you weren't there to stand up for him. Izuku glares at him. Yeah, obviously. You and your cronies made sure of that. He nodded. We did. I had this revelation, you know? He takes in a deep breath before continuing. You would have stopped me. Because you were always like that. Yeah. Heroic, brave, kind. Bakugo looks to the smaller boy and decides he was being too nice, so he scowls. And weird. So I changed. He shrugs casually, went to therapy. Because that's what you would have wanted. Izuku starts crying harder and Bakugo panics. No, shit, this is supposed to make you feel better, you. Izuku leans over and hugs the blonde boy. Thank you, Kaken. I needed this. Bakugo glares at him as he shakes him off. Clearly. My point is, there is no universe in which you don't help that weird caterpillar man. So don't beat yourself up for being a hero. You know, when I first saw you a few weeks ago, I thought you had some sort of elaborate personality change, because no way Deku is that confident. Bakugo scoffs like the idea of Izuku being self-assured is so ridiculous. And I don't know exactly what the situation is with the USJ, or whatever, but it's obvious that you wanted to help. He looks at his childhood friend. You've never changed. Nerd. Izuku wipes away the last of his tears from his red-rimmed eyes. You know, Mom always said Midoriyas were criers. Kaken grunts in agreement. I don't doubt it. Auntie was never wrong. Izuku nods to himself before turning to Bakugo. Follow me. He stands up and Bakugo groans. What happened to explaining things, huh? He says as he runs after the green-haired boy. Izuku just grins. Trust me. I want to show you something. The pair run through the halls until they reach the courtyard. They throw the doors open and breathe in the fresh air as they catch their breath. Great. We're outside. Now what? Kaken deadpants. Izuku smirks. Gotta get away from the cameras. Cameras. Izuku swings his backpack forward and opens the zipper. He pulls out a mask that is very familiar to anyone who lives in the country, hell, even the continent. Kaken gapes. No fucking way. Izuku tries to suppress his smile to no avail. He bounces on the balls of his feet excitedly. Aha! He squeals. How, when, what the dash? Mom had a lot of secrets apparently. Izuku beams at the awestruck boy. Kaken stares down at the Helios mask in disbelief. Them onchi. The two boys are at the apartment above the evergreen as Izuku recaps the story of Helios and how it came to be. Bakugo throws a ball at the ceiling as Izuku relaxes in his beanbag. So how powerful is your dad anyway? Bakugo asks curiously. I can't really tell you much, but he's so powerful it's classified. Izuku chooses his words carefully. Holy shit, Deku. What have you gotten yourself into? Izuku laughs. I didn't get myself into anything. This is all Mom's fault. Please. You could have given this up at any point. He gestures to the mask to make his point. Izuku laughs. Yeah, I guess so. The boy leans up and looks at the other. But you know you can't tell anyone, right? Bakugo chucks the ball at Izuku's face. I'm not stupid, dumbass. He scoffs. So the people who know are Nedzu, All Might, Hawks, that blood girl who you're friends with, and Tuya? Who the hell is Tuya anyway? Your life is a fucking mess, dude. Preaching to the choir. Bakugo barks out a laugh. So Helios got information and Izuku Midoriya tried to help at the USJ? Izuku sucks in a breath. Yep. Now I've got to figure out how to lie to Eraser about all of this. You're doomed. Yup. That night Aoyama goes for a walk to clear his head. He hasn't told anyone about Izuku Midoriya yet. Why hasn't he? He doesn't exactly know that himself. He knows that he can't stay in this stalemate forever. Eventually All For One expects information from him. So because of how wrapped up Yuga was in his own head, he didn't even notice the thief coming up behind him and snatching his watch. But he did feel it though. His head snapped in the direction of the criminal and he sighed. He can't even be mad. What he'll do is worse anyway. So he lets it go. Not bothering to chase after the thief or even waste a moment on tears. He does hear footsteps above him and he glances up to see nothing. Nothing until the thief that stole his wallet lands 2 feet away from him, completely knocked out. Aoyama's eyes go wide. Oh. He looks up once more and sees a familiar face. Or a familiar mask, he should say. Helios. The vigilante doesn't make any moves. Aoyama. Immediately the boy is on guard. How do you know my name? Who are you? Helios jumps down from the roof and leads him into an alley, saying nothing. What is going on? Yuga asks incredulously. Wow. So your whole school persona is totally fake, Helios says. Wait, what? Oh no. What are you talking about? Helios puts their hands on their hips. Cut the shit, Frenchie. I will know if you lie. So you're a traitor, huh? And you were going to sell out Izuku Midoriya. Aoyama feels as tears fill his eyes, and no, I wasn't. Was he going to sell him out? He truly wasn't sure anymore. All of a sudden Helios laughs. Don't worry, I'm nice. The vigilante leads the boy up a ladder and to the top of the rooftop. There Helios pulls down the infamous mask and Midoriya? Aoyama gapes and no way. Izuku grins, luckily for you I'm a better person than Dad. Aoyama doesn't know what that's supposed to mean but he feels himself relax a bit. He never did want to help the villains. He was just so scared. He hangs his head low, I'm sorry Midoriya. The boy shrugs and overall seems relatively calm for the situation, it's no biggie. Almost being sold out then probably murdered is no biggie? I would have gotten away anyway. So, how'd all this happen? He asks, presumably referring to his traitorship. Aoyama sighs, well it all started when I was 5. Izuku sits on that rooftop for about 10 minutes after Aoyama leaves. Well this is interesting. He's just immensely grateful for his mind-reading quirk. He's gotten better at controlling it but it's still a little unsteady. And thank God for that. His dad is on his trail. As long as Aoyama does what Izuku has asked, hopefully the villain will be chasing a dead end until Nezu and Izuku can deal with him. But Izuku is still on edge. So he deals with it the only way he knows how to. Throwing himself into danger and hoping the adrenaline will make him feel better. So when he hears a scream he runs to it immediately. That night Izuku gets hurt. Badly. He was being stupid, he knows he was. But he was anxious and there was a child being taken hostage. So he threw himself in the way. Oh my God you dumbass you got shot. Kachan's voice flits into his head as he imagines what the boy will say. But after Izuku dealt with the villain he didn't know where to go. He was too far from home, and despite how the civilians he saved pleaded that he go to the hospital, he couldn't. So he went to the only place nearby that he knew the passcode to. Aizawa and Yamada's apartment. So he hobbled up the stairs trying to keep the blood from seeping into the nice carpet. He typed in their passcode and the door opened with a click. He looked around the dark apartment but before he could call for help everything went blurry. Within seconds it had faded to black. When he woke up the first thing he noticed was how loud it was. People were gathered and talking at astronomical volumes. He blinked open his eyes and saw a blond man with long hair and glasses pacing the living room. His eyes closed again and he faded out of consciousness yet again. The next time he woke up he smelled blood. He looked around and saw Aizawa grabbing a first aid kit. The third time he stayed awake. He was laying on a couch with a throw pillow beneath his head. He looked down and he saw that while his chest was bandaged, he still had on most of his suit. He tries to ignore the thought that they had probably seen all of his scars from various fights and beatdowns. He looked around and saw Aizawa sitting at his counter looking nervous. Geez, who died? Izuku asks and the man whirls around. You. Well, nearly. The hero exclaims. Aizawa's bandages are off now which makes Izuku happy. Recovery girl must have worked her magic. Izuku shrugs, 'twas merely a flesh wound. Aizawa glowers at the boy. You got shot problem child? Izuku decides he better change the topic. Anyway you didn't take the opportunity to finally find out who the elusive Helios is? Were you scared eraser? He grins from beneath his mask. Aizawa rolls his eyes. I don't give a damn about catching you, you know that. Anyway you really scared the crap out of me and dash. Aizawa stops himself before he can say any more but Izuku just smiles. You and your husband? He says tauntingly. Yamada Hazashi? Also known as, he drags out his words for as long as he possibly can, present Mike? He says with glee. Of course you know, why wouldn't you? Aizawa says rubbing his temple like he's getting a headache. Knowing him he probably is. Your information is painfully easy to find Aizawa. He explains, like for example I even know your address and the code to get in. That's not good man. At that moment present Mike walked in with arms full of groceries. Oh. The listener is up. He puts the bags on the counter as he walks over to him. How are you kiddo? Izuku falters hi. How does one interact with someone they're friends with whilst not revealing their alternative identity? I'm sorry for bleeding on your couch. Yamada seems a little taken aback by this but he shrugs it off rather easily. That's perfectly alright. I'm just glad you're okay now. Izuku smiles. He's always like Yamada, he's always so positive. Thank you. He stands up woozily and Mike has to lean forward to help him up. Careful now. The man says. Do you want? Golly I don't know, do you drink coffee? Do I? Izuku grins. He then gets his bearings and walks over to where there's an old pot of coffee. He pours himself a cup, feeling perfectly at home with the smell of coffee beans. But before he drinks it he turns back to the two men. And he remembers his mask. And his secret identity. And his whole double life. On second thought, he says pushing the cup away from him, I'll do without. There was an awkward silence before Izuku broke it. So, where's Eri? Mike tilts his head slightly but Aizawa answers his question casually. She's in her room. We didn't want her to see the bloody and shot vigilante. Izuku smiles fair. Then Aizawa adds, you know it's strange. After all you did to help her you've never even met her. Yamada chimes in now, oh, I forgot that it was Helios who gave Netsu the information on Eri. The man beams. It's nice to meet you finally. A door opens down the small hallway and a girl walks out rubbing the tiredness out of her eyes. She spots the stranger immediately and bolts over to Aizawa's side. She whispers something to him and Aizawa nods to her. He's a friend, he says. Luckily Eri seems to take his word for it because most of the tension leaves her body. Izuku waves to her with a smile on his face that he hopes she can hear in his voice. Hi, you're Eri, right? I'm Helios. She twitches slightly at this Helios. Like the one that helped me get away from the bad man. She asks curiously. Izuku nods, that's me. Anyway, your dads were just helping me out with something I should go. He starts to walk towards the door but Aizawa blocks the way. No way, kid. What? Zawa, please, I'm fine. I'm with Shoyuta, kid. Mike says you need to stay at least for a little while just to make sure you don't faint. Izuku was considering his options. He could push his way through the door, but the men wouldn't let him leave without a fight. Could he beat them? Probably. He glances at Eri. He doesn't want her to see any more violence than she has to. He could knock all three of them out with chloroform? Mr. Helios, if you're going to stay, do you want to have a tea party with me? The girl asks with light glimmering in her eyes. God damn it, I can't say no to her. Izuku clicks his tongue as he concedes. You know what, sure. I'd love to. Aizawa and Yamada smile at each other, pleased that Izuku had agreed. Great. This is Mr. Might. He's the yellow teddy bear. She explains. And this is Puffy. Auntie Joke gave her to me. Izuku smiles as he sits down crisscrossed on the carpet next to the girl. She sets up a miniature table with little seats for her stuffed animals. She hands him a small plastic teacup which he takes gracefully. Eri holds one pinky up and Izuku chuckles. Well, aren't you one classy lady? Eri smiles. I'm a princess. Princesses are always classy. She says matter-of-factly. Izuku grins. Does the princess want to prank the kings by any chance? He whispers quietly to the girl. Eri's eyes light up, like with silly string? I saw someone do that on TV once. Exactly. He says excitedly as he remembers that he actually has some on him. He's immensely grateful for his new support belt. It can carry so much. He's like Batman. Eri looks uncertain for a moment. But won't we get in trouble? You're a princess. You can't get in trouble. He assures her. She smiles. Yeah. I'm a princess. Man, manipulating kids is so easy. No wonder Nedza does it so much. But Izuku was really just happy to see her smile. It's clear she was loved here, he just wishes she was more confident in that love. So while Mike and Eraser make breakfast, some kind of omelet, Izuku hands Eri the silly spray. The two of them crawl on their hands and knees over to the men. Izuku nods and Eri grins as she sprays both of them with it. She misses them entirely but that's okay because she's giggling the whole time. What dash for a pro hero. Aizawa is very disorganized and clumsy. Yamada is much more put together as he turns around looking confused before realization hits. Eri? Izuku stands up and high-fives the little girl. Good job. Eri jumps up to meet the high-five eagerly. Aizawa crosses his arms. No, not good job. He exclaims but Yamada just laughs. They're both little pranksters. Mike coos while Aizawa shoots Izuku a glare. You're corrupting my daughter. Izuku shrugs. The silly string was all her brilliant idea. He says. Aizawa wipes the silly string off the counter as he rolls his eyes and lowers himself to Eri's height. Don't do anything that this little menace suggests. He points to Izuku as he says this. Eri just giggles again. Helios is silly. Aizawa sends Izuku an exasperated look. He is something. After a strangely peaceful morning, Yamada and Aizawa deem Izuku somewhat healthy. Well, we can't really stop you from leaving, Mike says. But we should. Aizawa adds on gruffly. Izuku smiles at the men. I'll be okay. He turns to Eri. I'm a tough one. Eri giggles. Come back soon, Kay? Izuku nods. Of course. See you soon, Princess Eri. He bows theatrically to her. She returns his bow with a curtsy. Prince Helios, she says with a fancy accent. Izuku laughs and as he turns to leave he waves. What would it be like to live there? Be part of that family? Izuku sighs and shakes his head to get rid of those thoughts. There isn't time to get distracted, Helios. When Izuku left the Aizawa Yamada residence on Tuesday morning, Shoyuta went immediately to his computer. Something was off here. There was a puzzle piece missing and he was going to find it. Shoyuta noticed the feeling yesterday when Izuku Midoriya asked about Eri while they were arguing. No ordinary teen should know about that, it's highly classified. He clicks on a picture of the boy. Quirk. Not applicable. But that doesn't make sense? Izuku has clearly used his quirk so many times in class. He recalls the shock on Bakuga's face when the boy had used his quirk. The two of them are either childhood friends or enemies, it's hard to tell with them. So why did Bakugo not seem familiar with Izuku's quirk? He clicks onto the boy's parents. Inko Midoriya and no father listed. I've never had a dad. Helios had told him that one late night. Oh. Aizawa slams his laptop shut as his heart constricts. After Eraser had found him with that man's dead body, he couldn't find Izuku or Helios for a week straight. Not many vigilantes are expert bakers in their free time. They know me. Like Aizawa Shoyuta me. I don't know how and I don't know for how long, but my identity has been compromised. Who knows, you may even be in my class. I think your expectations of me are a bit too high, sir, but I appreciate the encouragement. Well, you can't keep acting like a reckless teenager. How do you know I'm not a teenager? What were you so focused on? Oh, plotting murder. What can I get for you? How do you know I'm lying? What if I'm a criminal? Why aren't you a hero? He had asked Helios. They had responded vaguely. It's not time. So, how are the UA plans coming along? He had asked Midoriya. Really good actually. Izuku Midoriya had known when and where to be the day of the USJ attack. He shouldn't have known that. The evidence piles up quickly. So many things flew under the radar when it came to Izuku Midoriya. Nobody really questions his weird behaviors or strange personality because that's just who he is. Just how much did Aizawa miss while he was distracted? Helios. He was so scarred when he came in last night. While Yamada and him were tending to his gunshot wound, it was hard to ignore all the other scars he had littered across his chest. Just what happened to Izuku Midoriya? Who cares how smart I am? I got offered a drink and I took it. I wanted to feel better and I did. Why is that a bad thing? Obviously, sir, you've never been an orphan at 11. Don't tell me what I know about a bad life. Inko Midoriya died 4 years ago. Izuku Midoriya would have been 11. Well, all for one glances over the files given to him by Kurojirai based on the information given by the Aoyama boy, and he knows instantly that he's being led astray. What kind of fool does the teenager think the 200-year-old is? He shakes his head with disappointment as he shreds the file. He looks over to Kurojirai. Keep me updated on everyone Yuga Aoyama hangs out with. And I mean everyone. There's a new influence in his life that we need to cut out. The Nomu nods, yes master. All for one thinks over the Aoyamas. The boy was so pliable before. What happened that turned him against the league? He scowls. He's angry, but how wonderful it is that he can frown again. A new collection of quirks he had acquired had provided him with a face pretty much identical to his before the fight with All Might, that utter buffoon. He sighs as he goes through his next pile of files. He has work to do after all. Izuku returns to the Evergreen at 7 o'clock. Himiko and Tuya have already started up the morning shift and Izuku smiles at both of them. Hey, where were you? Tuya asked. How were you worried? Izuku taunts and Tuya rolls his eyes, out doing H business. He says casually. It's still a little weird to Izuku that so many people know he's Helios, but he's grateful he doesn't have to lie as much. Toga nods. How was it? It's their little routine now. Every morning she asks if he was hurt. And if he is, Himiko helps him out a lot. She's pretty skilled at everything medicinal since she's had a lot of practice. Izuku sucks in a breath. There was a gun involved. He says quietly. Toga, who had been cutting a loaf of bread, raises the knife at him threateningly. Tsu. He grimaces, I may have gotten shot. She sighs, that's it, you're staying home today. What? I can't dash. You have to keep your blood in your body, Zu. Then give it to me. That's how it works. Izuku concedes, Phythian. Tuya raises his eyebrows, she's like Mother Hen if Mother Hen was out for blood. Izuku nods, am I see it? Both Tuya and Izuku look over Himiko studiously until she throws a knife at them. Izuku and Tuya, who are used to this, leap out of the way. Geez, temperamental much? Tuya says amusedly. So much to his frustration, Izuku spent most of the day sleeping. Honestly, he really needed it. His sleep schedule has been a little more fucked than usual lately. But unfortunately time waits for no one, and the next day Izuku went to school. He walked into the classroom the next day feeling very awkward. The rest of his classmates seemed equally unsure how to treat him. His gaze drifted instinctively to Aizawa's desk. He was sitting there, grading papers and resolutely avoiding eye contact with the boy. He grabbed the straps of his backpack and sighed as he walked over to his desk. Everyone's eyes were on him, but it was obvious that no one was going to breach the subject. So Izuku was immensely grateful when Aizawa announced that the class was going to the training gym. No one wanted to say anything with Eraser in the room, but everyone was hungry for an explanation. Izuku might as well take that opportunity to set something straight. Sure enough, as soon as they separated for their workouts, a handful of his classmates gathered around. Mina and Denki obviously, as well as Shiro and Uraraka. Mina was the first to speak. Okay, you gotta spill. What happened Monday? Like, you don't have to tell us, but you didn't come to school yesterday. Are you okay? Ochako says kindly. Izuku cringes remembering the argument he and Aizawa got into. I got myself involved in the fight Aizawa got injured at. He didn't know I was even there till it was all over, but he still insists that I was too reckless. Denki gasps, ooh, that's so dramatic. Who did you fight? Thankfully Shiro chimes in, it's probably classified. It sounds like it was dangerous. Izuku nods, yeah, very. He scowls slightly, but then he got all on my case about Evergreen and shit like he doesn't have his own family. Hold on, pause. Mina exclaims loudly before lowering her voice to a whisper, that Grump has a family? Then Shiro speaks up, wow. You know, I can't believe I've never noticed this before, but you know Aizawa well, don't you? Izuku nods, he's been a constant in my life for years. He stops by my cafe all the time, so we know each other pretty well. And I regularly take down criminals with him at 3 a.m. Denki gasps, we're finding out so much Aizawa Shoyuta lore right now. He grabs Izuku's shoulders, you are so much more interesting than you were 5 minutes ago. What's his fashion sense like? Does he ever smile? Oh my god, what does he order? Izuku giggles. So showing up drunk, being the principal student, having thousands of followers, and running a cafe by myself are all upstaged by knowing how Aizawa takes his coffee? Denki nods seriously, absolutely. Izuku rolls his eyes, black coffee. Shiro gasps like it's some big mystery they've solved, epic. Uraraka scoffs at Denki and Shiro's ridiculousness. So are you okay? Were you sick yesterday or something? Izuku recalls the bullet that was in his chest 36 hours ago. Yes, sick. Yap. He watches as the group walks away to do other workouts, aka telling the rest of the class the gossip they just uncovered. He sighs and looks over at where Aizawa is laying in his sleeping bag. He makes eye contact with the man for a split second before they both immediately turn away. Shit. The class gets their hero costumes on and it's the weirdest thing in the world. Before, when they first tried them on, everyone was so focused on their suit that no one really paid much attention to each other. But not this time. Whoa. Midoriya, what's that bandage for? Kirishima asks loudly. Izuku flinches. He looks down at the bandage for a split second before laughing it off awkwardly. Oh, just dash. All of a sudden people are staring. There are a variety of gasps, horrified, intrigued, shocked. Bro, why is Midoriya ripped? He hears Shiro whisper to Todoroki. Was it from when you were fighting that villain? Ojiro asks. By now the whole class was briefed on what had happened, so Izuku is grateful for the easy excuse. Yeah, that's it. But whoa dude, you have a lot of scars. Denki says casually. Bakugo shoves the other blonde boy harshly. Shut it, dunce face. Now Ojiro speaks up. How did you get those? Izuku zips up his suit as quickly as he can. Just stuff. He rushes out of the changing room as fast as he can. When Izuku leaves, the chatter increases by tenfold. He had a six-pack. That was such an insensitive question. We shouldn't pry. Everyone shut the fuck up before I blow your brains out. Bakugo roars as he stalks out of the room as well. Everyone is silent for a second before Denki breaks it. I did see a six-pack though. Izuku is the first person out of the locker room. This leaves him standing alone with Aizawa for a good minute. He walks up to the man. Hey. The man still refuses to look in his eyes. Hello Midoriya. Izuku sighs. Look, I'm sorry I was reckless, but you have to understand where I'm coming from. I was worried. About you, about everyone. Aizawa nods. I know. And I do. Understand, I mean. I was a hero student myself once. So, are we good? We're good. Sweet. By the way, sorry for barging in on Monday night. I kinda ruined your nice white couch. He walks away calmly before hearing something shatter. He looks back to see Aizawa staring at him wide-eyed with his coffee cup shattered on the ground, the drink spreading across the floor. Oh geez, are you okay, sir? You got coffee on your shirt. Aizawa regains himself quickly. Oh, I need to go clean this up. The man leaves swiftly, leaving Izuku confused. Was it something I said? The rest of the day went by weirdly. Aizawa had said that it was fine, but why is he acting so off? But Izuku just ignored it and walked home with Uraraka and Shinso later that day. And she's just so spontaneous, you know? Ochako says cheerfully, yesterday a guy came in and she said, Uraraka rambles on about Himiko and how cute she is. Izuku spaces out as they walk to the evergreen. Now, he doesn't want to be rude, but he's already heard the exact same story from Himiko earlier in the day. The two are adorable together, but honestly there's a limit to the amount of romance he can hear about before getting bored. The three of them entered the evergreen and Dabi and Himiko waved at the hero students as they entered. Izuku, Shinso, and Uraraka put their school stuff in his apartment upstairs before getting their aprons on. Tuya and Himiko both leave their current positions when Izuku takes charge. It's been a nice change of pace to have multiple employees to pick up the pace. At first Izuku was worried whether or not he'd make enough money to pay all of them, but after a few viral videos business was booming. In fact, there have been so many customers that Izuku has been considering renovating the place to make it bigger. Izuku spots Apollo jumping at Artemis from the corner of his eye and he goes to separate the two. Bad kitty. He scolds the yellow cat. Tuya clicks his tongue, that's what you get for naming them Artemis and Apollo. He says. Izuku rolls his eyes as he makes someone's coffee. Himiko is throwing her knives at the dartboard. It would be scary, but she's too good for it to feel dangerous. Tuya is serving table 1 and pointedly ignoring all the girls who are desperately flirting with him. Uraraka is manning the cash register with Shinso. She speaks to customers with a smile on her face. Everything seemed to fit into place nicely. He was friends with Kaken again, he had enough employees and Aizawa was all healed. But something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. Maybe he was still distracted by the work he did with Nedzu today on catching All for One? Maybe his injury was making him feel odd? He figured it out when the closing shift, Toga and Uraraka, started locking the doors. Aizawa hadn't stopped by. So that night as Izuku got on his Helios suit and put on his mask he went straight for their rooftop. Sure enough, there he was. Izuku sat next to him quietly. The man was staring at him and it felt strange. Like he was looking through him. Shit. All of a sudden Izuku remembers what he said a few hours prior. By the way, sorry for barging in on Monday night. I kinda ruined your nice white couch. Izuku turns to the man, you know. Eraser looks a little stunned but soon he sighs, I know. Izuku takes off his mask with a bitter smile. I guess I was hoping the voice changer would be enough to counter most suspicions. Despite knowing the truth, the man's breath still caught as he saw his student in the suit of the most reckless and powerful vigilante Japan has ever known. Ado-ikeo. Izuku sends him a smirk, you have to admit that I was pretty sneaky with it. Aizawa laughs in disbelief. Yo, I can't even dash. Izuku cackles, I had you so good. I would even talk to you about Helios as Izuku Midoriya. He smiled, how obvious was it? Aizawa shakes his head. You said so many things that should have clued me in. That I did. I was having a fun time. He says with a satisfactory grin. I bet you were. Running circles around the pro-hero known for figuring out secret identities. Aizawa looked at the boy. So you've been doing this since your mom died? Izuku nods, yep. Can you believe she never told me? He looks at Aizawa's expression and laughs, I know right. I had to find out from her journals. Aizawa scoffs, so why are you registered as quirkless? Izuku fiddles with his fingers nervously. Well, I couldn't tell anyone about my real quirk, so I lived most of my life as a quirkless kid. But why? What is your quirk? There's so much talk about it because nobody can pinpoint it. Izuku smirks, my quirk is something pretty special. He looks up at the stars as he explains, but it's sorta classified. It has something to do with what me and Nedzu are working on. Aizawa rubs his head, how many secrets do you have, kid? Lots. First of all, I have a second quirk. Ha. Ha. Let me tell you a story about two brothers. So that night passes with Izuku explaining every little thing he couldn't before. Every single joke he made that went by unnoticed, every scheme he pulled, every explanation for every decision. Everything that had gone unseen. It was a good night. Aizawa feels like his brain is exploding. So let me get this straight. You got a quirk that was passed down for centuries from All Might. Izuku nods, so Shoyuta continues. It's super strength that you're passing off as just being a late bloomer? And two of your employees are morally gray people that you met either after a stabbing or at a bar. By the way, how did you get into a bar? You're 15? Izuku smiles, but Helios isn't. Shoyuta groans, right? So the people who know about this are who again? Nedzu, All Might, Toga, Tuya, Hawks, Aoyama, Kaken, and now you, I guess. Wow, Izuku frowned slightly, that's too many people. And you're anonymous on Twitter too? Do you even sleep? What can I say, I'm a creature of the night. Aizawa sighs, God you're rabbit too right? The vandal? Izuku grins, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Aizawa smiles despite himself. You really just help people, don't you? Huh. What do you mean? As Midoriya Izuku, you feed hundreds of people a day. As Helios you save lives. You do God knows what with Nezu. As Anonymous you create change. And as All Might's successor who knows how many lives you will save. Hell, even using spray paint you slander an awful man and regularly disrupt his life, which, I'm gonna be honest, is pretty damn helpful to my faith in humanity. Izuku feels his face get hot at the praise. Just doing my due diligence. Shoyuta shakes his head. This isn't due diligence, kid. This is being a hero. And an overworked one at that. Too much for a 15-year-old who should be having a normal life. How do you manage? Izuku's expression turns thoughtful. I guess I've just been doing it for so long that it's just how it is. Shoyuta ruffles the boy's hair gently. This shouldn't be how it is, problem child. You need rest. Sleep. Izuku smiles softly. As much as I'd like that, Zawa, I have to do this. Why? Shoyuta asks desperately, why do you have to push yourself like this? Izuku stands up and looks down at the sitting man. Because I'm Helios. He pulls his mask back up. It's what I do. All for One reads over the small list retrieved by Kurojiiri. And these are all the people he was with? Yes, sir. I even added his classmates on the back. All for One sighs and turns over the paper, immediately noticing one name in particular. Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. He frowns slightly. What a coincidence. He was about to write it off as some silly random thing, but then Kurojiiri flinched and All for One glanced at him. Does the name Izuku Midoriya ring any bells? The Nomu says nothing. Use your tongue before I rip it out of your head myself. At the USJ. Immediately All for One's attention is rapt. The hero Eraserhead said something about an Izuku. All for One grips the sides of his chair and hisses out through gritted teeth, and why didn't you mention this earlier? I didn't think it mattered. All for One gives his assistant a smile as he stands up. I'm sore dash. Before the pitiful excuse for an employee finishes his sentence, All for One smashes his head into the concrete wall. Not enough to kill him, that would be inconvenient, but enough for him to really feel it. Everything matters. He says as he brings out his handkerchief to wipe some BLD from his freckled face. Speak up next time. So, go over what happened at the USJ again. Leave nothing out this time, okay? He smiles with phony benevolence and Kurojiiri nods. Why yes sir. All for One looks over the picture provided of the boy. Izuku Midoriya. At the USJ where Tamura's quirk was stolen. Green hair. Like her. Freckles. Like me. He breaks out in a grin as he starts laughing. Sir? Kurojiiri looks rather concerned, but All for One doesn't care. He turns to the man with a manic smile on his face. A few centuries ago people had said his smile had reminded them of the sun. He wonders what it looks like now. I do believe I am a father. He says gleefully. The next day when Izuku wakes up, Aizawa's words bounce around his head. This is too much for a 15-year-old who should be having a normal life. It never really felt that way to him. He was always just doing what needed to be done. People needed to be saved, so he saved them. Customers needed to be fed, so he fed them. The HPSC needed to be taken down, so he took it down. Today he glanced at the work schedule. He had an after-school shift like he normally does. But what if he took time off? He has 4 other employees. It wouldn't be a stretch. It'd actually be easy. So he did. He turned to Toga and asked if she minded working another shift. She had just nodded and said, sure thing. That's the shift with Ochako-san, right? Awesome. He felt a smile creeping across his face. Yeah. Now he had some free time after school. He grabbed his backpack and ran out the door. He glanced down at his watch. He was early? He supposes he did go in a little earlier the other night. So he stopped running and started simply walking. He strolled past the gates and walked into the school. He walked into Nezu's office and asked, Say, can you help me with something? Izuku felt good. He slept for 7 hours last night, and he and Nezu had covered some serious ground with the Endeavor case. He had just assumed that the principal wouldn't have time to help him out, but to his surprise the rat was excited to work on it. By 1 p.m. they had constructed a nearly impenetrable case against Endeavor. Then he went to the cafeteria and ate with his friends. Lunch Rush handed out food to all the students and Izuku was surprised at how good it was. He chatted happily with Tenya, Ochako, Tsuyu and Shoto. He even stopped by Kaken's table and said hello to him. He got a little singed in the process, but he didn't care. He was having a good day. He managed to get through today's hero lessons without being sent to Recovery Girl, and Aizawa was finally normal again after tiptoeing around him. That day, as he was walking back to the Evergreen, he asked Ochako and Shinso a question. How busy would you say your days are? Uraraka hums thoughtfully. Let's see, I get up around 7:30 and get ready. Then I go to school, then work for a few hours before going home. I do my homework, sometimes I paint, then I go to bed at 11. Why do you ask? Izuku shakes his head, just wondering. Then Shinso responds. I get up at like 8, go to school, then work. I do some training, then go to bed at like... He winces when thinking about his sleep schedule, like 3 or 4. Uraraka gasps. That's not nearly enough sleep, Shinso. Well, what about you, Midoriya? Get up at 5 o'clock. Set up the cafe. Open at 6. Work. School. Work. Bed at 11. Up at midnight to be Helios until like 3 or 4 a.m. Then he realizes neither of them knows he's Helios. Pretty much the same as you, Uraraka. You know, up at 5 for the cafe and bed at 9 or 10. The three of them walk in peace for the rest of the stroll while Izuku is considering his life choices. I know my schedule is a lot, but is it really that bad? That night he decides to not go out as Helios. He's nervous, of course. What if something goes wrong? But he's going to do this. So he drifts into sleep early and fades into dreams quicker than he ever has in the past. Oh, is he finally here? It took him long enough. Shush, go easy on him. What do you mean? He should have made it here long ago. Oh, shut up, third. You know that this is unorthodox. That's one way to put it. He's coming around. Oh, leave him alone, fifth. Izuku opens his eyes and sees 7 people and 1 mist man. He looks around and recognizes most of them. Oh my god, you're the holders. He gasps as he realizes who they are. He's quick. That's right. A woman with inky black hair kneels down next to where Izuku is laying on the groudish space. How? What is happening? He asked. A man with pink hair shrugs. We're pretty sure you're here because of your dad. Wadash. The woman next to Izuku speaks again. But we're not entirely sure. Honestly, you showing up was just a good guess on Third's part. Third smirks. It was more than a guess. I called it. Izuku looks around in confusion. You know about my dad? Of course, we know everything that has ever happened to you. Izuku shudders, but then the pink-haired man jumps in. Not everything. Just everything since you got One for All. That's a bit better, Izuku supposes. So you guys are just watching me? Pretty much. What else are we supposed to do? We're dead. Your life is free entertainment for us. Fourth brings the blankets, I bring the popcorn. Fifth says, hey. Now a man with long white hair starts talking for the first time. Leave my nephew alone, guys. He turns to Izuku. Sorry about them. Oh, you're first. He pauses for a second. My uncle. First smiles. That's me. Now since you're here, we might as well fill you in on some things about All for One and One for All. Izuku smiles. That'd be really great actually. So when Izuku wakes up to his 5 a.m. alarm, he has a lot more information about his dad than he ever thought possible. He rubs his eyes as he walks downstairs thinking about his conversations with the Vestiges. He yawns and then all of a sudden he hears, you missed a step. Before he can register that he's tripped and fallen. He braces himself for impact then, hold on, what? He looks down and finds himself floating. I do not remember taking this quirk, he thinks to himself. Yeah, that's because it's mine. What the F? 7th? That's me. Oh, I can talk to you like, telepathically. Another one of my excellent theories that came true. Third says smugly. So can I just... He concentrates and dark ropes fly from his wrists. It crashes into a stack of pots and pans and bangs them around. Holy F. He turns around and sees Himiko staring at him. Could you always do that? Oh Diamen, you got caught. Second says. No. New development of sorts. Himiko rolls her eyes playfully. Your quirk is so stupid. Like super strength, some sort of lightning, and now what? Whips. Izuku tucks a strand of his dark green hair behind his ear. Yeah. Strange. The two of them get the cafe up and running. After setting up and eating breakfast, they have some extra time to just play with the cats. Then at about 5:30 Tuya walks in earlier than he usually does. Izuku had asked for him to come in early to go over some endeavor plans. He looks at the pair of teenagers surrounded by cats and sighs. How do you guys get up so early? Himiko grins, bold of you to assume we ever sleep. Izuku snorts, mood. Tuya leans down to sit next to the pair. He winces as his bones crack and Izuku and Himiko giggle. Oh, if you guys and your stupid young bones. Izuku laughs, okay old man. So do you want to get started with this? Tuya sighs, not really, but I guess we should. Izuku picks up Aphrodite, Pretend she's yours tea stain of a father. Himiko protests, no. Diet is too nice to be Endeavor. She grabs Aries, use him. Izuku nods, good point, good point. The red cat hisses at being picked up like a plaything but stays pretty well behaved otherwise. This is Endeavor. You're on the stand. Himiko picks up Hestia. Oh, and this is the attorney, she says excitedly. Tuya raises his eyebrows at the dramatics but doesn't fight it. Himiko puts on her best serious voice, which is not very convincing, and asks the questions listed on the paper Izuku and Nedzu had worked on. Tuya, Todoroki, you were said to be. After a while they've gotten through most of it but there are still a few roadblocks. Are you sure I can't call him AMF on the stand? He asks again. Himiko turns to Izuku, it seems fair to call him one, I mean he did F his mother. Tuya grins, see. Hime agrees with me. Izuku rolls his eyes. Hime is also on Japan's most wanted list. I don't think you should listen to her advice on how to act in court. Or how to act anywhere for that matter. He shoves Himiko playfully. Hey, I take a lot of pride in being on that list. Izuku smirks, anyway, much as I would love to see you tear into that piece of issue, we're trying to appear like kind souls to the jury. Tuya scowls, Speaking of kind souls? No, Zu, don't ask. You know I have to daps. Don't you want to see him again? Preferably before things all go to us. Tuya sighs, how would I do that? Hi Shoto, it's me, your dead brother. Oh Natsuo, Fuyumi, how's it hanging? I'm scarred both mentally and physically. He says cheerfully before returning to his usual bored drawl. Yeah, that's not a nice family reunion. Izuku sighs, but, if he asks about you can I tell him? Tuya rolls his eyes, you act like he's just going to think, huh? Is my friend's coworker my dead brother who died years ago? That's not going to happen. That is exactly what is going to happen. But that's neither here nor there. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through What If Vigilante Deku Was the Owner of Cat Cafe? I hope you found it as intriguing and thought-provoking as we did. A big shout out to Arch12 for crafting such a compelling story. Don't forget to check out their profile on Archive of Our Own for more amazing works. The link is in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to What If Deku 2.0 for more fascinating explorations into the world of fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we're always excited to hear your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you guys in the next video.